So I'm not going to read this. We're doing the student work for chapter 34. Actually, it says that on the title. We're not going to read through John 19:38 to 20:31. We've read that through a couple of times, several times actually. You've read that through. And we're not going to answer all of these because some of them, frankly, are just if you were, well, you aren't. And we all want to say the right thing. Like if you were in Joseph of Arimathea's shoes, would you have remained a secret disciple as he did? And we'd all say, no, I would be for Jesus, except for it would cost you your job, your livelihood, possibly your family, maybe your life. Now are you going to do it? But we all want to say, sure, I'd stand for Jesus, even though the entire Sanhedrin just had him crucified, right? So let's look at that third question. What was it about Mary's relationship with Jesus that made her cry when she did not know where he was? Why would it bother her? Okay, he was her Lord and friend. What else? Yeah.
He was really close to them, and then he just disappeared. Well, I guess it was, but not what they thought it was going to be like. So everything was alive.
Yeah. They've been really close, and it would have been terribly disappointing. What else?
She finds some safety and comfort in the Lord.
Yeah, she finds safety and comfort. Anybody know what? This is Mary Magdalene, by the way. What Jesus did for her before? What sort of state she was in before she met Jesus? There's a misnomer or a misunderstanding about Mary Magdalene. People say she was a prostitute. She was never a prostitute. That's not what Scripture doesn't say that she was a prostitute. But she was demon possessed. Jesus exorcised 7 demons from her. I think I'd be pretty grateful, right, if somebody had done that for me. So I think she believed. I know she believed she owed her life to him, and so she loved him, and was very grateful for what he had done. But I think there's another answer, and your curriculum doesn't give this answer. I remember reading a couple years ago, which probably means like 20 because the years all kind of run together, about a cemetery in Omaha that some vandals went in and destroyed headstones and overturned things and just really did a lot of damage. And if you had a loved one whose grave was desecrated, wouldn't that be troubling to you? It would be to me if it were my parents or my grandparents. And Mary's arrived at the tomb expecting to find Jesus' body in the tomb and to further embalm him, further put spices on his body. And it's gone. And what does she assume has happened? Somebody stole his body. Now, I'd be really upset if my parents' grave sites were desecrated. I would be heartbroken if their body was stolen, right? And so that's what she thinks has happened. It's not what happened. That's what she thinks. So I think her depth of emotion had to do with everything we just talked about. We're going to skip that next one. Do you think Thomas was wrong to want the same evidence of Jesus' resurrection that the other disciples had seen? No. Yeah. No. Why not, though?
Because it's the impossible. Something that's impossible to happen.
Right. It's not like they're saying, Jesus got a new tunic. Prove it.
You can see this tunic.
Yeah, it's a completely different story. And it's easy for the disciples to believe. They saw him. They were able to see the imprints of the nails in his hands and in his side. I think we give Thomas a bad rap. We call him Doubting Thomas, like that is who he is. Even though it was just this one moment, and as soon as he saw Jesus, he said, and we all doubt. Doubt is a universal. And we'll talk about this senior year. It's a universal thing. I've doubted. You've doubted. We've all doubted at different times. And Thomas was no different than any of the rest of us. Now he was in a unique position to see with his own eyes the risen Christ, to know he was dead and know he was alive again. And the next question is, should he have trusted the testimony of the other disciples? Probably, but would you trust someone if they came in and said, hey, I know this guy was dead, but he's alive now? How much are you going to believe that? That's going to be pretty unbelievable. So I think we need to give Thomas a little grace for his doubting, and he didn't stay that way. We'll skip those next two on page 256, and then why did John write his gospel? So here's where we come to this very familiar two verses in John 20. Why did he write his gospel? Right. And he says these were written, so everything I've just written in the first 19 chapters, 19 and plus 30 verses of the gospel. These were written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. If you can write that down verbatim, you will be happy that you know how to write that down. And so he wrote it so that people would come to know Christ as Messiah, as Lord. That was the purpose of his gospel. What about this gospel? So we've been through 20 of 21 chapters. We have one more left, and it's a great chapter, but we've read 20 of the 21 chapters. What about this gospel is most convincing to you that Jesus is the Messiah and the Son of God? Yeah. See.
I said that Jesus' words match up with his actions.
He lived what he was as well as. Yes. You want that? Yes, Kim.
Do you know about
Right. There were dozens of people. Actually, there were hundreds of people who saw the risen Christ. Right. That you're going to memorize a good chunk of 1 Corinthians 15. And at one point, Paul writes that he appeared first to Peter, then to the rest of the disciples, and then he appeared to more than 500 brothers at one time, most of whom are still alive. Meaning, there are people out there that are still alive that saw the risen Christ. Ask them, did they see him? He appeared to hundreds of people alive, and those eyewitnesses wrote down what they saw. That's pretty credible, right? If it was something other than a resurrection from the dead, would we go, it's got to be true? All these hundreds of people say it's true. And let's say, big stretch here, right? Brecken wins the mile today. Is she run the mile?
Yeah.
She ran the 2 too? Yeah. So she wins the mile. And the track team, all the track team comes back and says, Brecken won are we going to go, no, she didn't. No, she didn't. That couldn't happen. No, we're going to believe them, right? The only reason people don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead, we have way better evidence than Brecken's, except for there'll be some video of it. Victory. We have hundreds of eyewitnesses. The only reason we don't believe it is because it's a resurrection from the dead. That generally doesn't happen. We'll spend a lot of time next year talking about the resurrection and how we can know for sure that it really happened. And if it's true, and you're going to hear this again next year, and I've probably already told you to do this year, the resurrection is the pivotal point. If it's true, it's all true. If it's not true, it's all false. It's the linchpin of our faith. Our faith turns to the resurrection. Anything else that you found that was convincing to you?
The amount of times things should have gone wrong, but didn't. The amount of times it should have been captured, but wasn't.
Or people should have gone hungry and got food, or people should have died and did not, or did die and came back to life. Yeah. All of that is true. Any questions on this? Okay, so you have the rest of the period to study for your Unit 7 test. I'm going to stress once again that you want to complete that study guide well. You will be happy that you completed that study guide well if you do. Look at me funny. What did she mean?